Johnny Somali's charges. Here we go. So these are the actual things we have. So I've gone through this, but this is very important for today as a prequel. The arrow, I added this. So this is something, once again, available on my locals. I still have it pinned. And here's the criminal process. We talk about criminal complaints submitted. Goes to the police. They investigate. Typically that happens for 2 to 4 months. In this case, it happened 2 to 3 weeks. And they suggest to the prosecutors. Prosecutors literally within days sent it and recommended it for trial. That's step 4. Trial, there's multiple hearings. They're open to the public. There's also sentencing at the original trial. And then you get post-sentence when he's serving his time in jail or whatever else, whether it's suspended sentence. He's trapped in the country. He's got to stay and serve out his time. He cannot leave while he is sentenced. And by the way, at this point, his travel ban extends through the end of trial. So until he's either proven guilty, in which case he'll have a sentence, or not guilty, then in which case he would be free to go home if he's not guilty. That's not happening. But yeah. So these are the stages. So I'm going to refer to today what stage this is in. So when I talk about this, I'm going to talk about, is this in stage 1, 2, 3, or 4? Really, all of these are in stage either 2 or 4, but that's the relevant stage. So just understand that. We are not going to talk about anything today, although I do have a slide at the end to account for this. But the ones I'm going to use to add up, to make up a number, I'm not going to count something if there hasn't officially been a criminal complaint submitted. So if I have not heard of or seen a criminal complaint submitted, I am not going to consider it. Okay, so let's continue. We got to start with some vocabulary because some of you guys need a vocabulary lesson, and I love to be a teacher. So let's talk about vocabulary. So many YouTubers, right? Many YouTubers are using the word charged. Now, charged has 2 meanings. One is how we commonly say it. That's what we call colloquial speech. When we say charged, we typically just mean somebody said you did it, like allege. Like usually in English, when we're just talking and we're having casual conversation, like if I'm talking to Gin Blades in the chat and I'm like, yo, what's going on? Gin Blades like, I love learning law language. Gin Blades, man. Gin Blades, what's up? And Gin Blades like, dude, legal mindset. I heard Johnny was charged with obstruction of a business and drug use. And I would say, well, you're right, technically. And I would do the internet, well, actually, the legal, actually, legally charged means the same as indicted. But I'm not a total nerd. And I understand that people use charge as alleged. I understand you guys said it. So I'm not going to go out there and be like, all these YouTubers are lying because they say charged. I understand they're using it in a non-legal sense. Most of the people are not lawyers. They don't understand the meaning here. But you know what? Part of my channel is to educate people and to make you guys a little bit wiser. Like, so instead of an 80 IQ, you guys have an 81 IQ, right? You guys have an 81 IQ instead. So, so what we're trying to raise your IQ here and teach you guys a little bit. So, charged does have a meaning. Indicted. What does indicted mean? So indictment, indicted is very specific. It means the prosecutors found enough evidence to meet the legal standard for formal criminal charges and to begin a trial. So this is a very specific thing, okay? This means that they've come up with enough evidence that they can say, hey, we can go to trial now. Because typically, that's a harder standard to meet, right? That's not, because you can have the police, for example, investigate something, and the police don't give enough evidence over to indict somebody. The prosecutors will say, we don't have enough legal evidence. Just because you believe they did it doesn't mean they did it. And let's go back a slide, right? So this is where this is relevant. So in a lot of these cases, we're at step number 2 where the police are investigating. There's no indictment. So with a lot of these things we're going to talk about, we don't know whether there's enough evidence to actually bring it to trial. The police may be looking for that. The prosecutors may be looking for that, but we don't know whether or not there's enough evidence for trial yet on a lot of these things. So that's an important amount. Anybody can submit a complaint. By the way, in Korea, this is a big difference. In Korea, individuals, private citizens can file criminal complaints and criminal charges. So yeah, and also so this is a very important thing. So let's go to the next one here. Convict or convicted. You have been found guilty at trial, whether by judge or by jury. That's convict. So anybody out there who is saying that Johnny Somali has been convicted, that is incorrect. Johnny Somali has not been convicted of anything. There are a lot of YouTube videos which are clickbaiting right now with the word convict or convicted. That's wrong. And I saw even a newspaper do it. And it was a small one, but they still said convicted. And I'm like, oh boy, that's really wrong. And that's actually dangerous because if you say somebody's convicted, you can be hit with defamation. So don't run around and say Johnny Somali is convicted or a convict because he's not yet. He will be in the future. He's a future convict, most likely, but not right now. It's clickbait to say he's convicted, right? Or guilty, right? He's not guilty yet. This requires a finding of guilt. Now, in Korea, by the way, the majority of cases are dealt with by judges, not juries. Juries are rare. So this actually is going to be found guilty by a judge and the judge alone. All right, let's continue. All right, the first charge is obstruction of business. Let's talk about this one. So this is the only one at stage 4. So this is the only one at stage 4. The rest of them are at stage 2, or they don't exist, right? So, but we're going to talk about the ones that exist at stage 2. So this is the only one at stage 4. So the only one is obstruction of business. Right now, we are pending the first court hearing. Now, we may have more depositions and more interviews from the prosecutors. They can still collect more evidence, but at this point, it's in preparation for trial. They've already told us they're going to trial. So it's at this point, anything we see is in preparation for trial. How many counts do we have? So counts is like the number of allegations, right? And yeah, there's a issue here with how many allegations. So the one place that he actually ended up getting charged for is a 7-Eleven. Could he be charged elsewhere? Yes, we saw a video of him at Lotte World. So you've got the penalty is, the reference is section 314 of the Criminal Act. The penalty per count is up to 5 years of imprisonment and up to 15 million Korean won, approximately 11,000 USD. And so this is per count. So the thing you need to understand is if he gets hit by Lotte World, this could be 10 years. But right now, since we only have one, if he ends up getting hit with multiple accounts, then he could end up with 10 years, etc. And fine of up to 15 million won, that's 11,000 USD. So that's the first one. So once again, this is the only thing we're on trial for at this point. The only thing we're on trial for is obstruction of business. All right. Deepfake images. Stage 2. Police investigation. So the thing we have right here with deepfakes is we have at least one. We have one for Bong Bong IRL. And she's the female streamer who there's a deepfake of her making out with him like on the side of a lake. And in that specific one, that's been submitted with a police report. Now, with Korean police, once you submit something, you technically can't pull it back. However, if you are unwilling to cooperate, they may just drop it, or they may not follow through with it, or they may offer some sort of like settlement offer or whatever else on that specific issue. So it's possible if Bong Bong backs down that the police are like, well, we're going to go with a lighter issue on this one. We don't know. However, other deepfakes were created. So we saw those deepfakes of Brennan and Vivian being and Brennan being the former allies, which ambushed Johnny, right? There were ones there, right? That kind of couple. There was also Dalun, the UDT member, the Korean SEAL. So there was a picture of the Korean SEAL and Johnny Somali like making out. There's a deep fake there. So I don't know whether or not he's pressed. I have no idea whether or not he's pressed that deep fake charge. He could, based on the community creating that. Korea right now is going crazy with this. And actually, this is the case. This is the one that I think if they want to make an example, Johnny Somali is the perfect case for it. And some people are saying, hey, it wasn't Johnny, it was somebody else. Was it somebody in his Discord community? And was he spreading it around and allowing it to circulate in his Discord? They might be able to pin him with that. Once again, you have control over your Discord. And if you are out there knowingly circulating it, or like, if he was in there, like, spreading it around or whatever else with it, interacting with it, it's different if he didn't know it existed. But if he's out there spreading it around or retweeting it or whatever, like, they could look at that very unfavorably, right? There are people in his Discord. So people say, how can they find out? There are people in his Discord. So we got the deep fakes. That's on Article 14 of the Special Cases Against Sexual Crimes, up to 5 years in prison and 40 million Korean wons. That's $40,000. However, if it's sexual, which this one was, because it's them, kissing, whatever else. Now, the language is obscene. So as long as the judge finds it obscene, that actually is a longer prison sentence. So it can go beyond 5 years. And they can also add charges in digital sexual harassment. So we don't know how far they're going to take this. Could be even further if they really push that one for deepfakes. We've got at least one, though. So on all of these, I'm using this count for my prediction. So I'm using what we have, what exists, not potentially more. Because remember, with obstruction, there's potentially, many places that could go after him. We're not talking about that, though. For deepfakes, we got that. Next, drug use. Drug use is super not okay in Korea. Super not okay. One thing I did learn, though, fun fact, did you guys know this? Korea actually just permitted medical marijuana, but in very super limited ways with a prescription. So it's very limited. So super limited, ultra limited, super rare still, very hard to get. But medical marijuana actually just got passed, I think, in 2022 or 2020 in Korea. So they do have that, but it is not like California. This is not like the US. This is not the same way. It's extraordinarily limited, right? However, this does not fall at all under that provision at all. So this is stage 2 police investigation. There's one count. There will not be more than one because he wasn't trafficking. He wasn't doing all that stuff. It's just him and they're getting him for use. So this one is kind of clear and it's under the Narcotics Control Act. Now, this is actually one where I can predict the penalty pretty well in terms of what the maximum will be. It's probably going to be maximum 5 years because he's not distributing. He's not a repeat offender in terms of drug offenses, right? So Ramzi Khalid Ismail, right, can get up to 5 years for this. This is where there was a lot of misinformation. A lot of other platforms were saying this was 10 years. This is 5 for his level, so it's 10 if he was doing something else, but it's 5 at his level of simple use, right? And that's under the Narcotics Control Act. Assault is stage 2. That's under police investigation right now. Now we don't know how many people he's assaulted. It could be potentially many people, right? Because remember, he pushed people, he knocked him, right? Ramzi, that's Ramzi Khalid Ismail, yeah, that's his name, and he could be potentially hit by multiple people for this. However, we know there's at least one. There may be more, and the police are still investigating, which means they're probably trying to go collect. If I'm the police, I'm trying to collect everybody who's willing to testify with this. So this could be like 10 people. So each count can exaggerate, can make this a multiplier. So 10 counts of assault could be 20 years in prison. Understand that, right? So there we go. We got at least one count. That's an Article 2 Punishment of Violences Act in Korea. And it is for simple assault. It is 2 years imprisonment and up to 5 million won, 4,000 USD. If it's aggravated, it's 10 years. So if anybody had an injury, now he didn't normally have a weapon, I don't think he had a weapon. Now his buddy Hank, that's a separate story. Hank did have a weapon, but that we're not talking about Hank here. We're talking about Johnny. Johnny may have injured people. He may have hurt people. Who knows? And if he did that, that would be aggravated. That'd be up to 10. But we're going to go with the safe assumption of 2 years. He definitely can be got for that. So under the 2, he for sure can be get for simple assault. For aggravated, that's more complicated. Simple assault for sure. So I'm going to go forward and make my prediction on the assumption he gets at least simple assault. So now we're going to go back and add them. We're going to add them all together. We're going to add 2 for assault. We're going to add 5 for drug use. That's 7 for you slow people at home. We got another 5 for deepfake images. Now, my math ain't that good, but I think 5 plus 7. I think that's 12. And then we got another 5 there. So let's keep going here. What does that add up to? My math ain't that good. 17 years. 17 years. So right now, we are facing with the charges we have, on hand right now, without looking more than this, 17 years based on the maximum penalty of the crimes that he's currently being at least investigated on. This is not stuff that's made up. This is not stuff that's fake. This is not stuff that we're counting on. And mind you, 17 is counting on simple assault, not aggravated. But let's assume it's not aggravated. 17. If it was aggravated, it would be 25. But I think that's a push. I'm not trying to be aggressive. This is almost a conservative guess here. 17 years old. You know, the age of the girls that he was hitting on illegally in several countries, by the way. I believe he was in Colombia when he did that. He was like hitting on 16 or 17-year-olds. Yeah, he's that guy. So let's talk about how they charge these things, because this is something I've been wanting to explain. So this is what's happening here. So they're charging this like a reverse pyramid. Think about it this way. So they're going to start with obstruction. That's for like throwing over the ramyan. That's for being an ass with the ramen, throwing it around, yelling, screaming, drinking inside. So that's the basis. That's what's going to get him a conviction. He's definitely going to be convicted of that. But it's not the deepest penalty. It's not the longest penalty. It's a significant one. 5 years significant, right? And it's as significant in terms of jail time. But once again, what they can do is they can layer these on. So then he goes to assault. And let's say he doesn't get the maximum penalty. Let's say he just gets 1 year of prison. Or let's say he gets a suspended sentence. Well, then he'll get hit with the assault, and that's 2 years, but maybe it's not a suspended sentence. Maybe he's got to actually serve the 2 years. And then deepfakes, he does that. Oh, he's got to serve time for that. And then drugs, he gets hit with that. He's got to serve it. That's how it goes. They're going to layer them on. And as they go up, they get more severe. And the judge, as they go up, is making these more severe.